a human being must discover who he really is. The first principle for doing that is to discover who you are not. That's where your attention and work begins. And so we will begin. You are not, definitely are not, that sad mood that you have when you feel unwanted and unneeded. You are not feeling anything. There is the mood, but you are not it. And when you hear your favorite love song, you are not that dreamy state that arises from hearing that romantic melody. Now, the difficulty must be explained early also. Not having our true spiritual identity, we feel that it is up to us to find out what is real in back of everything. And so we begin dreadfully to build a substitute life. A substitute is inferior. Any kind of substitute product you might get in the marketplace out there is worthless. And how utterly true in the spiritual life, to the extent that a substitute life is no life at all. It's just a masquerade, the play acting. But because the individual man or woman has not given himself the intelligent assignment of finding out who he is not and doesn't want to do the work, he does things according to the law of repetition and momentum, which means that he allows any old emotional reaction to come to him that wants to come to him. And it gives him a certain weird sort of feeling reaction to simply be able to tell himself, I am worthless, or I am worthy. Who taught human beings to adopt those ridiculous and hazardous statements, those falsehoods? We were taught it by imitation of everyone we ever met. We looked and followed their pernicious example, and nothing ever came along to put up the stop sign and say, stop where you are, don't do that anymore, because if you do it anymore, you're going to wander so far and the wilderness of yourself, your non-self, that you will eventually even lose the desire to get back home where you belong. So this morning, we're going to put up that stop sign. And the information you will receive will be very helpful in showing you how to do from yourself what must be done for yourself. Because the new intelligence that you will have will act for you. And that alone will be a pleasant astonishment to realize that the setting aside of the emotional way does in fact have a replacement. You thought that you were all there was and all there ever could be, but you listened to this explanation and obeyed the rules and finally began to realize that your emotional life is as far distant from your true life as the earth is distant from the sky. You no longer took it as needful to add to yourself with your frustrations and self-references. You saw it was no longer necessary to do it. And what a breakthrough that is. And let me add this. I especially, personally, like the next thought far above many others. I like them all, and you should like them all. But here's a favorite of mine. I'm going to give you a favorite. And it will help you enormously. And I'll give you examples of it. If you're out on the battlefield fighting 3 enemy soldiers on the battlefield of life, the evilers out there are the other 3 soldiers. And here you're just one little lonely infantryman yourself with a little rifle. 3-1. Well, it's okay to go out and standing all by yourself, to go out and conquer the 3 enemy soldiers. Oh, no, that's not nearly good enough for you. Your resolutions are so firm and frequent and strong that you're never satisfied with little enemies to conquer. What's 3 foes out there? You're eager to take on the whole world all at once. 1,000,000 enemies opposite you out there. Anybody can do some small little instruction in the spiritual life. You're told to do the exercises, and you do it maybe once a day. You're told to write down a nice little thought that means something especially to you. And you write it down and you put it on the living room table in bright color printing, and you see it once or twice during the day, and then you said, I've done my spiritual work, now I can go out and play. I've obeyed instructions. That's a stage, by the way, and you'll get over that stage. But the main point is this. Think, all of you think, of the million enemies all at once charging you with the bayonets fixed, and the fierce scowls on their faces, and all screaming out threats to you as they charge. What would represent in your personal life 1,000,000 to 1 against you? Now you can prove you're worthy. 3 is nothing, 20 enemies is nothing. What is the worst, absolutely the most horrible battlefield that you don't even want to think about half the time because you feel as if you can never win? You're going to think about it. What's your worst problem? What scares you the most? Where do you most often feel that there's no way to get rid of its insolent tormenting of you? Got it? Okay. You will now listen to the facts of the matter. And please allow a new kind of response to enter your mind when I give it to you. Because when I tell you things, moral principles that you have heard before, the tendency is to react as before. And I'll explain a little more what that means. Look, is anything too hard for God? What difference is it to the Almighty Commander-in-Chief up there? What difference is it to him whether there are 3 enemies to defeat or 1,000,000? It makes no difference at all to God. But you have forgotten whose side you are on. Now, please don't forget whose side you are on. If you were to know it while remembering your single most grievous trouble, where is it? Where you work? The past, is that what comes up? 1,000,000 malicious memories come up and try to shame you, try to tell you that you've stained yourself so badly there's no hope. What is it? I'm asking you to take part in this talk by informing yourself what it is. Just do it. Now that you have the problem, here's the solution. The solution is for you to have worked so endlessly on getting rid of the emotional nature that you used to like to live with so much. You have made such progress in getting rid of dreamy or screamy emotions that you no longer want anything to do with them, and so want to have everything to do with their replacement. For every evil there is a good replacement. But displacement has to come first. That is, you have to displace by getting the old out of the way, and then that's room for the new. The closeness of living more and more in the kingdom of heaven, where all strength is, as you remember who you are not, you will also remember who you are. That is it. A million, a trillion fierce circumstances or worrisome past hauntings. None of them have any power to enter the kingdom, which is now your kingdom. Stop worshiping sour, negative, inner states. You cling to inwardly what you really love inwardly. So if you can now be defeated by just 3 foes from the evil world, or just one, if defeat is now your daily habit and occurrence, it is because you do not understand the first 15 minutes or so of this talk, and you're going to have to do a whole lot better with collected information as follows. In the talk, the point was made in different words, but I'm restating it to myself. You were saying, it makes no difference the size, so-called power, or the numerical superiority of the enemy. What is that to the true spirit? Those sort of scary thoughts can only come to the excited nature, the agitated mind. They're all in it together in one horrible conspiracy to prevent you from choosing what you should be choosing, which is the higher level. Let me repeat a phrase, and hopefully this will occur to you again and again. Stop worshiping the scary, which is the same as the moody and emotional and distressing. Stop worshiping worry. Now you think of it that way from now on, which will expand your insight. Well, I must worship worry. That has to be the accurate statement about it, because that's what I do all day. I worry, therefore I must worship it. I must also think that worry is a necessity. And I heard it explained in class enough times that I think worry and shame, etc., is a necessity. I think I must worry in order to survive. I don't want to let go of me. But when you say that, you don't realize what you're saying. You're saying, I don't want to let go of the habitual fragments of fantasy, which have been my guide and companion and object of worship for so long. I don't want to let worry go because I'm worried that I will go with it. That alone would be pure revelation to you to understand that you have identified yourself, the me and mine. You've identified your nature with the anxiety. And you're being asked to give up your anxiety in the face of small or large enemies. You're asked to give up the anxiety, but you, in your very fast answer, say, I'd like to give up the torment of worry, but I don't want to give up the me that's in that worry, to have invested myself in it over so many worries. And you don't know that what you just said was another falsehood. Let's go over it one more time. You are not an entity, a personality, a person who has dreary thoughts, deep, dark emotions. I am not my own fear. For the first few years that you struggle hard with what you're being told, you will not be able to break out of it because of the lifelong habit of insisting that one of the greatest pleasures, put it in quote, I have is crying out in the night of that circumstance, crying out. Things were going well for a while, then all of a sudden I fell over the cliff into the dark ditch. Here is the mistake you make when you fall into the dark ditch, when you meet the foe and get afraid. You you think, and this is a part of your cry in the ditch, you think you are crying out to God or man for help. You are not. What you are really doing is going through another stage of the stubborn refusal to give up your screaming suffering. Above all else, you want to be able to remain someone who can even look up in heaven and blame heaven for failing you. Your screams of despair, your depression periods are all a trick that you would rather play than try to understand the trick. You will now make a determined effort to try to understand it. You don't have to be in anguish or fear over anything at all. There is nothing at stake, nothing to risk, as you now think, by knowing that it's not necessary to be a persecuted or distressed human being. The fact is, when you have any tears, any heartache at all, the fact is there is no person called you doing the suffering, going through the anguish. There is no one there. What has happened is that an experience, a bad marriage, overwhelming enemy memories from the past come up. And they try to make you think that they are you. And then you go into what was explained before, that you don't want to just let them go because you fear that you will lose your life, your soul. And I will repeat what I often say in a point like this and let it sink deep. You don't have any life or soul to lose. You have the illusion of a life, the illusion of a soul and a spirit. So let's look and see exactly what happens when 3 or 3 million evilers rush toward you. That is, you go into great pain of any kind. Here's what happens. Now remember, there's no you there who's suffering at all. What happens is this. Because you only have the past nature with its delusions and darknesses and misunderstandings, The event that triggered the whole thing, the lost lover, the lost money, what happens is that the mind hears and sees the event, and then it goes mechanically into the feeling part, into the imagination part, and they all shake and scream out, the voice part. The voice screams out. The physical eyes begin to have tears. The hands shake. The lips quiver. All this happens because you took it, the bad news, you took it as if it was happening to someone you thought was you. My relationship with that man, that woman is busted. I no longer have that income that I was counting on so badly. The deceitful, habitual I leaps in, and it interprets the event according to its own madness. Hits the mind, hits the feelings. They, in turn, affect the physical self. And so all sorts of needless, dangerous physical things are done by the body that has been so misdirected by the I, the self, that you wrongly believed in because you didn't know that you don't have to and shouldn't believe in it. Then what happens? You've had a lot of experience with this. Think of other people you've seen, what happened when a tragedy, grief came along. They turned it into a grief and a tragedy. You see, first there's the event, the loss. Let's generalize. The loss in itself, you lost your money, you lost your lover, lost your respectability, so-called respectability. The loss in itself is nothing. It's neutral. It's impersonal. But since you vow that you are you, when the friend says, I don't want to see you anymore, because you're unspiritual and unheeding, the I jumps up and screams, here's a chance to prove I'm real. And you're the victim, by the way, when it says that. And because you're sound asleep, it screams out, you lost that. See what you lost. How are you going to make it tomorrow without that friend? Remember all the nice things you used to do together? You had someone around who said he liked you. What's going to happen to you? You receive and believe the lie of the I. I have explained to you crimes, hysterical explosions, fanatical acts. I've explained to you why and how this physical body goes crazy, screaming out in pain, in revenge, retaliation. Anytime you see a physical body in the news, walking down the street, when you see it do something self-destructive, the drunk driving, you come on, fill in a few blanks as I'm talking to you. Whenever you see that, you will connect it with what you've been hearing. You will know that that person, now you're looking at the other person, but that will help the person that is doing the work too, because you'll be able to see the mutuality of it. Hey, I used to do what she did. I used to walk around the office in an irritable mood when that other employee shifted his work off onto me. I couldn't say anything because the boss might hear of it and I might get bawled out or something. That was me walking around the office for a whole day, burning and raging because in some way he made me do his work. That used to be me. And I now understand better the cause of criminality, of crimes, or of any kind of self-destructive behavior, and it's because the event came along and I'm not living in the spiritual world which always sees without self-reference. Because I don't live there, I allowed myself for the 10 millionth time to be lied to by the impostor within. I would never have believed I could have understood everything so clearly. Thank heaven I can. Now you're explaining it to yourself. You came to work at 9 o'clock as usual in the office, and there were 50, 60 people around. And you each had your share of morning work, papers to take care of, little errands to run around between offices. You all had that, and you were smiling and happy, and you had a little cupcake in your desk. The little cupcake gave you strength enough to make it to the 10 o'clock coffee break, right? Oh, the boss thought you were thinking about advertising. You were thinking about cupcakes. Oh, and there's 2 of them in the package, isn't there? Both mine. All right. Oh, the world was so beautiful. Nothing but one great big pair of cupcakes waiting for me, inviting me. Then it happened. What happened was, right over the portion of your desk where the cupcake is secretly hidden, you don't want anyone else to see it unless they ask you for one of them. Right on top of that, you were very surprised to see a pile of extra work 3 feet high. Where'd that come from? A minute ago, I had worked it down to nothing. Now look at it way up there again. Where's the enemy? Then you look across the aisle, and guess what you see across the aisle? Old sourpuss. We'll make it a man. But he's usually sitting there glum, looking down, sour-faced all day long. But guess what? Right now he's smiling. And you know why he's smiling, don't you? He's the one who put that stack of hard work on top of your desk. So your day is ruined. And at eve, yes, what I'm telling you is true. And you're to experiment from now on with what I'm going to tell you next. Even the cupcake at 10 o'clock didn't taste as good. In fact, they were both gone before you knew you'd consume them. And you used to be able to taste, oh, nice chocolate, cream on top of the chocolate cupcake. How many of you are going to be thinking about cupcakes now? Right. Because you brought yourself into the incident. I tell you, look, I am telling you the truth and the facts about all this, of how you can know what it means to overcome the daily world, wherever it is. You do it by not allowing the lie I to come in and tell you how to react to the unexpected and unwanted pile of extra work on your desks. Here's how you could have reacted had you kept your feelings out of it, had you no longer wanted to identify with feelings. What you could have done as see the pile of work there, and there's so many things, I have to condense it now. First of all, you would not see it as an enemy. You would not want to get a sense of being persecuted if someone who's always has to do someone else's work. You would not have seen that, had that reaction at all. You would have seen the work, and maybe you did understand that the man across the aisle is the one who put it there. Now, come on. If you live for the pleasure of enjoying the kingdom of heaven wherever you are, what do you care how you're going to spend the rest of the day? What do you care? You're always in the right place within. What do you care if there's an interruption or a change in your exterior work? God is stronger than everything, including a pile of work 10 miles higher than you've ever seen before. You take it down, do the work. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Please don't allow the old nature to sneak in and spoil not just your day, but your nature. Please remember the kingdom of heaven is in charge of every corner and every incident of this life, of this world you live in. You can stay where you belong, but you have to do the work required to no longer love dragging yourself into it and looking around to see the enemy. The reaction of other people toward you is going to change too. There's so much to say about this one incident. He is waiting for you to look over and growl at him. You are not going to do it. And not for the false pleasure of denying him the pleasure of not seeing you growl. You're way above that too. You're not going to growl because you are not going to wreck yourself anymore. You're going to simply do whatever work has been given to you, and you're going to remember that you're here in this world to live in eternity starting now. And let that extra pile of work remind you of what you're supposed to be doing with yourself. Remember it and then do the right thing. Good morning.